Hey sewing friends, welcome back to another video from Emporium Threads. My name is Ray, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about domestic sewing machines. Today specifically, we're going to be talking about a couple of machines, one a little bit more in depth than the other. One of them is going to be the machine that I primarily sew on, my domestic. That is my Husqvarna Viking Opal 650. Now, before we jump really far into this, I want to just go ahead and let you know I am not in any way sponsored by, affiliated with, or receiving any kind of compensation in any way from Husqvarna Viking. The only reason at this point I'm talking about these machines is because they are machines that I personally use, so therefore I feel like I can recommend them. So I actually own 3 Husqvarna Viking machines, one of them being my Opal 650, which I primarily bought for quilting, and I've had it for over a decade now. Since transitioning into making bags many years ago, I still create some small quilts, some wall hangings, things like that, but I do primarily use my machine for bag making at this point, which was not what it was originally purchased for. However, one of the reasons I want to make this video is because I often see questions, I receive questions about what machine I'm using, if I recommend it, if I like it, and also I hear a lot of maybe not misinformation, but advice or guidance in regards to machines. And while I don't think any of it is wrong, I do want to say that if you want to make bags, you do not need an industrial sewing machine. I personally do actually own a different brand of industrial sewing machine, and I do use it for bag making. I only got it about a year and a half ago because it was something that I just wanted to do and branch out into, but primarily I do still sew often on my Viking Opal 650. It's very rare that I meet anything bag related that my machine cannot handle. So for that reason, I actually wanted to introduce a new machine into the mix. So that new machine is the Husqvarna Viking Jade 20. Now, I have sewn on this particular machine in the Viking gallery. However, I have not sewn on this specific machine, and I've also not unboxed it brand new. So the first thing we're going to get into is an unboxing. I'm going to show you everything that's in here, how it's packed, go through all of the things with you to learn about this machine, and then we're actually going to go ahead and make a bag with this machine. I haven't fully decided what exactly we're going to sew yet, but I know that I want to try to sew a bag on this. That way we can see together how this machine will handle and if it is at a better price point for a lot of budgets versus something like the Opal 650, which is a little bit more expensive. We're also going to compare the features a little bit, what I know about my machine versus what this machine has or does not have, and see if that's something that you as a buyer or as someone who may be looking for a domestic machine watching this video, see if this machine will work for you. So let's get into unboxing this now. I'm going to get the box out of the way pretty quickly because this box is pretty massive. I'm about 6 feet tall and big box here. However, the Jade 20, one of the things that really kind of drew me to it is it's a bit of a smaller machine. It's a little bit smaller than my Opal 650, which means it's going to be a bit better for traveling. However, another thing that drew me to this machine is the fact that it is a beefy workhorse style machine. It is partially computerized, although some of the items on it are still manual, which in my mind makes it perfect for a beginner. It also makes it perfect for somebody who wants to travel, who wants to use this machine and really put it through its paces, or for somebody who just has a little bit of a smaller space at home and maybe needs to store their sewing supplies and machine in a compact area. Let's get to unboxing this, get this out of the way. I want to take a look really quick at just some of the features on the box here, and I'm going to literally read those to you, and I just touched on a couple of these, but they're back here on the back. So large sewing area for bag makers. This specific machine has a fairly large throat space in its class 4 size. That was one thing that automatically made me as an experienced bag maker say, yep, that is a great machine. Another thing is it's got the start stop function button. So you actually don't have to use the foot pedal at all. That can be really great if you've got any type of condition that hinders you from using the foot pedal, or you're just not feeling it that day. Maybe you've got a temporary injury or possibly probably something else that's going on where you just either can't or don't want to use the foot pedal. So the start-stop function is really fantastic. I use it the most personally for winding bobbins, which this machine does have a built-in bobbin winder. Also really love that. The main function on this machine for a bag maker is going to be perhaps a zigzag stitch, but really a straight stitch. And this machine has a nice quality straight stitch in my opinion, especially for its price point. But it does come with a lot of other fancy stitches. So as far as those fancy stitches go, you do have access to them on this machine, whereas machines lower, a little bit lower on the budget side of things are really going to come with more like 8 to 10 stitches. This one, I believe it's 82 different stitches. And I'm going to tell you right now, for bag making, you're not going to need most of those, but it is nice to have the capabilities. So let's open this guy up and let's see it in person. All right. Open up this big old box. Got really nice packaging here, a lot of styrofoam around this guy, along with some accessories. We've got a foot pedal cord or a power cord, one of the two. Here's our foot pedal attached to its cord. And then I may need to put this on the floor in order to get this guy out. So let me do that. All right. So really nicely packaged here. Of course, does come with all of our warranty information, all of our manuals here. I know that a lot of people kind of put their nose up at the answer when they have questions about their machine. If somebody says, read your manual, but I will tell you from experience, there are things in this manual that no person will remember all of them. So when I first got my Opal machine, I was pulling out my manual every other day. I still have it in the top drawer of my sewing area to access in case I need it. There's so much information in your manual. Definitely read the manual. Husqvarna manuals, in my experience, have been really well written, not confusing at all. They also come with pictures. Everything is really nicely, clearly laid out in them, and I found mine to be very, very helpful. Put this big guy right there. Okay. So let's pull this styrofoam off. All right, so my first impression here is that obviously this machine is in its travel mode, travel case, because you can't see the throat space here. So it's all, compact and put together there. Let's get that guy down. My foam. So we've got a plastic bag around this guy to, just say, hey, it's sealed from the factory. Let me see if I can tip this a little bit. Get this off. So here we've got our machine. Beautiful emerald colored plastic right here toward the front. Now the outer shell of this machine is going to be plastic. However, the vast majority of the innards on this machine are going to be metal. I'm not going to claim that it's an all metal machine. It's certainly not going to be the same as those old machines that our moms and grandmas were sewing on, where they really were all 100% metal. However, by today's standards, where everything, we're looking for those all metal workhorse machines, the Jade series is definitely going to be a part of that as far as current from the dealer domestic machines. This thing feels, pretty weighty, pretty beefy. I'm not going to guess on a weight here because I'll probably get it wrong, but it has some real heft to it. I'm moving this thing around. We don't hear any jiggling, any rubbing, any squeaking. It's a very solidly built, solid feeling machine. So I'm going to turn this around for you so you can see this. You'll notice right now we still don't see that throat space, but you can make out a square here on the front. This is a really interesting quirk of this machine. On the back here, we've got a lock. There's a special accessory case that comes with this machine where we unlock this, and this whole accessory case comes right out, and voila, now we see our throat space and we see the actual machine. So we have taken this accessory tray off. I'm going to set that aside for just a moment. We will talk about that because it's a very interesting feature of this machine. We've got this really nice dark gray plastic on the back. Flip this guy around with its built-in handle. And then we're gonna look at the front here. So we do have additional accessory trays on this machine right here on the front. Let me pull that out. So this actually slides all the way off if you wanted to, but you've got two back and front small trays here. So really handy little accessory case there, along with the larger one that we pulled out of this throat space for travel. So a couple of things to note, talking about travel first. You're going to a quilting expo, a bag making retreat, going over to a friend's house, maybe you do a sit and sew type thing in a quilting guild or some other sewing group. This will be a fantastic travel machine for pretty much any circumstance because of its compact size. Again, you can see I'm 6 foot tall, I'm pretty broad, and this has a good size. And again, like I said, for its class, we've got a lot of nice bag making space, throat space here. However, this machine has a really great travel size. So that was thing one that really kind of attracted me to this one and wanting to try it out. Additionally, this case here, when we have our accessory tray on, and we put this guy back in here, and we lock it, everything on our machine is now safe, sound, and secure. This tray will actually fit our power cord and our foot pedal. So when you are traveling, oops, get that in there. You can fit the whole thing in here, close this guy up, and have everything all in one place. That is something that my Opal 650 cannot do. You can kind of stick everything within the throat space and then put its large cover over the top, but its large cover is more like a bell. It just kind of sits over the whole thing and you pull the handle up through it, which is fine, except for when you walk around like a bell, the top kind of wants to sway around and knock a little bit. You're not gonna have that problem on this machine. So I found this accessory tray and way of travel really, really interesting, very intriguing. So before we get too much into the machine, let's go here into the accessory bag that is included with the machine. Now, frankly, some of these things I don't even ever use. I'm not gonna know what they are. But there are a lot of really interesting feet included with this machine. We've got a couple of felt pads that are used up on the spindles up here for bobbins to prevent rubbing and shifting. We've got, of course, some various spool caps here. Comes with some different needles. We've also got a couple of bobbins. This is one thing that's really intriguing about this machine. When you go into a store like Joann's or someplace like that, they have a few different classes of bobbins right there available in the store. They're your typical bobbins that will fit something like a Kenmore or a basic Singer machine. In the past, Husqvarna Viking machines pretty much always needed their special Husqvarna Viking bobbins. That is the case with my Opal. So if I happened to go into a Walmart in the middle of the night and I really needed some bobbins, I wasn't able to purchase those. I had to wait until my dealer was open. Now, that's still the case for most of their machines. However, this specific machine actually uses, I believe, the class 15 style bobbins. They are the basic, plain, regular bobbins. I'm gonna double check on that name, and if I'm wrong, I'm gonna drop it on the screen here once I read the manual. But these are your more basic bobbins that are readily available in a basic sewing section. They're also a lot more cost effective, which makes the cost of using this machine for your hobby just a little more digestible. So we've got some extra bobbins. This machine also comes with a small seam ripper, also comes with a screwdriver for changing your feet, and also other basic maintenance things, removal of a few small components for you to not really do servicing, but just be able to address your machine. We have this guy here, which is one of the Husqvarna Viking buttonhole feet for the automatic or semi-automatic style. You go ahead and clip this on, set everything, and it will make an automatic buttonhole for you, excuse me. So it's the buttonhole foot. My machine has a different style than this, and I really love my Husqvarna Viking buttonhole foot. It works flawlessly. We do have one of these little net guys here. These are used for your thread in order to keep the spool orderly while it's up here feeding through the machine. Got a small brush with a tip on it for cleaning. Got the spool holder here. We also have this guy, which is an edge foot guide. typically used for quilting. You go ahead and stick this into your ankle of the machine, and then you can use this to sit and ride along the lines that you've created in order to be able to quilt nice straight lines across long areas. My Husqvarna Viking machine also came with one of these. It actually came with both of them for left and right, and I do actually use these for bag making quite often when I'm doing quilting. We've got a myriad of other feet here. Comes with 5 in the accessories here. And I want to double check. There's actually a 6th foot here on the machine. So you've got 6 foot in total that come with this from the factory. And of course, Husqvarna Viking makes a whole bunch of really interesting feet, several of which I use for bag making specifically, and we'll go into those more in depth. You've also seen me use those other extra feet on my other YouTube videos. They are ones that are tried and true. I rely upon them quite often. One of those is the Teflon foot. The other is the narrow zipper foot. Out of these feet that are included with the machine, you do get a wide, kind of more traditional zipper installation foot. I prefer the narrow foot, and it is the one that is featured in most of my other videos. I do actually have one of those feet for this machine today. I also have a Teflon foot for this machine, but again, those are not included with this specific machine. The last thing out of our kit that we have here are these small yellow stickers. Most machines of any brand come with these small yellow stickers. I was actually not informed of this when I got my first machine, and I'm fairly certain that I actually tossed these in the trash. If you are a new machine owner or someone who never opened your accessories kit, go dig these out, especially if you are a bag maker. They will be your best friend. These are pieces of Teflon tape. They're very special, thick plastic style Teflon that's different from the type of kitchen Teflon or Teflon tape that we as consumers can purchase. And these little Teflon stickers actually have a score line down the middle of them, and they can be put on the bottom of any one of your sewing feet. This helps us glide along materials like leather or vinyl. And in the case of bag making, these little Teflon stickers are on one of my feet. It's actually on my clear open toe applique foot, another foot I use quite often, specifically for top stitching. And I have almost worn through my stickers. I use them so much. So if you are new, if you have a brand new machine, if you have your old accessory kit somewhere, dig out these stickers. When we open this lid on the machine, up here on top, we've got a series of stitches, about 82 in all, that come with this machine. You can see all of them here and their respective numbers to program them into the machine or to select them on the machine, as it were. Up here, you've got your little area here for bobbin winding. You have your traditional feed-through system here for your tension discs and all of that to come down to the needle. And then you've also got your small area here for spools. And then you've got a razor cutter here for cutting the razor on the bobbin, as well as you've got a razor cutter here on the edge, over here on the side, for cutting away a project. I really like my razor cutters on my machine. Most machines feature those, but not all of them. You also have your wheel over here that you can use either to hand crank, or obviously it's going to be running as the machine runs. And then we have our screen right here on the front of the machine, as well as all of our computerized buttons. One of the things about this machine that really attracted me was the fact that you can move the needle both all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Now, on my machine, that's a feature that I have, and it is one that I really grew to love in bag making because I can get very precise, very narrow top stitching and keep it consistent throughout my whole project. It's not something that is a must for machines for bag making, but when I was looking for an alternative bag making machine, that was again something I was looking for. This has it. I think that's a fantastic feature. We're going to turn the machine on a little bit later and I will show you some of those things. Another thing that I'll show you at that time is the light underneath this machine. Many cheaper machines that are under $1,000 will require you to buy an external light or simply provide your own light strip to adhere to the machine. I personally don't want to have to do anything like that. I want my unit to be great from the start, as good as it can be, especially for the money that I'm spending. So I chose this machine because it's actually got a tremendous light for its price and class. You can see very well. It's a nice bright white LED light, and it's large and it's not buried up in the machine. So that was another thing that really attracted me and I liked about this machine. I also like that in most ways it is computerized. There are a couple of features that go in with that I really enjoyed. One of which is this little button right here. This button here is our backstitch button. It's going to put your machine into reverse while you're sewing, allow you to backstitch a little bit, and then once you press it again, you will go ahead and continue in reverse. Machines of this same price and caliber or less typically have a lever. There's no problem with the lever, but I really do prefer the button. I think it's just a little bit cleaner, a little more simple to use. You also get some options on this computerized machine like a stitch fix button, which is the same as a backstitch or similar. It's going ahead and fix your stitches. And you also get a needle up and down button. Machines on a lower budget scale don't typically have the needle up or down button. And what that's going to mean is if you are humming along on a project and you need to stop to pivot or you need to make an adjustment, you can stop and designate ahead of time whether or not the needle is going to stay down in the project or raise up when you are finished. I tend to keep my needle down position set on so that when I stop, I know my needle is staying where it's at. And if I knock my project or I need to make a movement, raise the foot at all, the needle stays where it's at and keeps my project secure, as well as keeps my stitching consistent. Those are just some of the very basic features about this machine that attracted me to it for bag making, but let's take it over to the table and give it some practical trial run type exercises. Let's see how it handles things like nylon zipper tape, vinyl, waterproof canvas, water resistant canvas, interfaced cotton woven, and all those other things that we use when we are making bags. I've gone ahead and relocated the machine over here to our work table. I've already gone ahead and plugged in the power cord and the foot pedal cord. And so now I'm going to fire up the machine. So that little thing that you saw the needle do there is not uncommon. Pretty much all Husqvarna Viking machines do that. They kind of reset themselves when you start them up. So if you've got one and you're watching this video thinking that's abnormal, it is not. Perfectly normal. So one of the first features I want to touch on, since we see it so boldly here, is the lighting. Now, important features as far as bag making or just sewing in general, but this video does really pertain to bag making. I find, especially with a lot of the tiny details that we do, good lighting is a must, and I don't want to have to provide my own LED strip or anything else like that. I want good lighting built into the machine here. You can see on my hand, nice lighting for my projects. Now that we've fired this up, let's go ahead and open our top case back up. We can see our computerized screen here displaying that we are on a number 1, which is just a plain straight stitch. If we go up here and kind of reference the different things, your guide up here actually tells you the different types of materials that you are stitching on for different woven all the way up to thicker woven materials, and it kind of gives you a bit of a guide up here. So that's a really handy feature. I'm not going to touch too much on that, but nice to know that it's there, and it even tells you what particular foot you should be using in its opinion. So here on this basic front area though, all of our dials and controls that we're going to need. This button right here is our up and down function for that needle. Again, really love that for bag making. We have the start and stop function down here. We've got a speed control on this machine as well. So again, I am no beginner. However, I use my speed control quite often and find, especially when I'm sewing and I'm tired, if I just dumb down this speed a little bit, my ankle and my foot don't get away from me speed-wise. We also have our reverse button here, which is really nice. And then we've got that start and stop function down here below as well. A little button here for our bobbin winding. We don't have to hold our pedal down in order to wind a bobbin, and they actually always suggest that you use this button so that you maintain good even control and speed the whole time when you're winding. That is another feature that we will actually bring up while, we're talking about all these things, the bobbin winder. We've got a built-in bobbin winder right here on the machine, so you're not going to need any kind of a side winder. And it's got a little doohickey here on the side that is adjustable to adjust the amount in your bobbins. And as long as it's adjusted correctly, you should be able to click it over into place, wind a bobbin, and it should actually stop itself. And especially if we use that start and stop function, it will just, go ahead and wind until it's all done. We have a nice throat plate here. I'm kind of revisiting this bottom part here. We've got a nice throat plate with lots of very bold, easy to read measurements. They have pretty small measurement increments here, and they actually have it in both millimeters and inches, which is really nice. Mine actually does not have that same throat plate, and so I don't get the bed plate here. I don't get that same I have lines, but it doesn't actually have the measurements engraved here in the metal. So hopefully you can see that here. We've got our bobbin case down here. It has a permanent 1/4 inch seam allowance marked on it, which is great for most bag making. A lot of our bag maker pattern makers out there use that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So isn't that fantastic? It marks it for us. Pop that bobbin cover right off here. We've got an easy to get to bobbin. And we've got a nice little guide here about how to thread it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and wind a bobbin now. Having never done this on this machine before, hopefully I can figure it out with the little guides up here on top. And then we will get to sewing after we test our tension with our bobbin and thread. So I've turned the machine a little bit here more toward me just so that I can see a little bit better. I have here a spool of Gutermann Sew All thread. This is my go-to brand on my other Viking machines. They really seem to enjoy Gutermann thread, and I get really nice tension. Gutermann is also extremely high quality thread with little to no lint on it. It's not going to dirty up the inside of your machine, and that to me is a very important thing. When I first started sewing, I used a lot of Coats & Clark and some cheaper brands of thread, thinking they were all the same, but I had massive tension issues in my original Singer machine, and then much later when I got my first Viking machine, I was still having tension problems. Someone suggested to me that the quality of materials I use really is important, and once I took that knowledge and ran with it, I have had much better luck using higher quality materials. So I'm going to wind this bobbin here, excuse me, with this thread, this Gutermann Sew All in a brown. It is telling me right here on this small guide that it actually wants the thread to come up from underneath like this. So I'm going to wind it with the top part of my bobbin here, put it on. I need to locate one of my small spool caps here. So I'm going to grab one of those from my accessories pile. So I'll place that on. Now, I've heard that this can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try this a couple of times, make sure that I get it right. We're going to go up underneath this little hook here, back. We're going to go over. I believe we are supposed to loop through this little disc and around in the little pre-tensioners, and then we take one of our holes in our bobbin, bring it up through from the inside of the two walls of the bobbin. There we go. And then we are bringing it in just like that from the inside out. And now we are going to set that on our little peg here, and we're going to push this over into the bobbin winding position. Now that we have done that, we see our screen has changed here. So I'm going to locate my pedal underneath. Just make sure that's within reach, but I'm actually going to use that. I'm going to use the start and stop button. And so I am going to just hold this thread upright like this and start. I'm actually going to change my speed. Looks like it was set all the way up, so I'm turning it down a bit, and it's telling me what speed I've set it at. And now I'm going to start. I see what I did wrong there. This is what happens when we learn together. I did not have the presser foot up. Should have had my presser foot up, Really important, it doesn't want to grind the feed dogs on the bottom of the foot while there's no project there. Try again. I'm going to pause that and actually just trim this off. And I'm going to wind my bobbin until it's completely full. As we can see here, the machine is still running, but the bobbin has stopped itself. So we're going to go ahead and push our stop button. However, our bobbin is full, so we can go ahead and click it back over into place, pop it off, and we'll use our razor right here to trim it. Now, in order to load our bobbin, we want to look at the top of the bobbin with our tail down to the left side coming over the top like this. It should kind of appear as though it were the letter P. So we're going to drop our bobbin into our case down below here. We're going to loop over the top. We're going to come here below this little hook here, pull it into place, come through the path, pull down and around, and pull. Slip our cover, the small teeth, into place on the left and press. Now it's in place and we can go ahead and pull, and there's actually a razor down here below as well to trim off our little tail. That was all pretty easy. Now let's see if we can figure out how to thread the top. I don't think that will be nearly as hard as the one with the bobbin. And then we're going to do a little bit of tension test after we do just a couple of other setup things to this machine. I am going to pull this thread out of this bobbin tensioner here, and I'm just going to start all the way over by pulling this out. Just rewinding that a little bit. I'm going to come up underneath this part here. There's a small path back here, back corner. I'm going to come through there. I heard my tension disc click as I came through this portion, and I'm just going to come straight down over to the left, right back up. We've got a hook here that we can see just right there. And I want to make sure that my hook is facing just upward a little bit so I can make sure to hook around right there, and I did. I'm going to come back down and I'm going to use my automatic needle threader. Now, I have one of these very similar on my Opal 650, and I do really enjoy it, so while not necessary for bag making, it really is a nice feature to have. So all you do is go ahead and make sure that your needle is at its highest and correct position. Your foot is up and should have been up, by the way, when you threaded. If you are threading with your foot down, that is going to be a problem. Unthread, raise your presser foot with the little trigger here on the back, the little lever, and go ahead and restart and rethread. Very important that that is open so your tension discs in here are open and loose and ready to take the thread there. So what we are going to go ahead and do is pull down, and you see this little needle threader wants to kind of swing around on its own naturally. So we're going to pull down here. There's a small hook at the top. We're going to hook, make an L shape, come down and hook and hold our thread here. The needle, the eye of the needle lines up with the small hook here. We should be able to let this go and it should thread for us, and it did. It thread right through that needle hole. So now we just pull this out to the left side and our needle is threaded. Now I'm actually going to end up unthreading this because I want to change this needle. This is the needle that came from the factory, and while it may be fine, I have a preference for my needles for bag making, and it's what I'm most comfortable with. So I'm going to remove this. That way in our experiments about tension and things, I know I've got a fresh and very sharp needle. I will unthread this, set it to the side here. I'm going to take this provided screwdriver and I'm going to unscrew this needle, and then I'm going to replace it with a Schmetz needle. This pack here happens to actually be a 7010. I often will use 8012, 7511, or in this case the 7010s, because through the pandemic it was hard to get the 7511 needles. So I'm just going to default to one of these 7010s today. That's what I've been using, as we can see from this pack. I'm sure it'll be fine. There is a bar here to the right. I'm just going to lightly unscrew just a couple of turns to be able to wiggle my needle right out. And I'm going to get rid of this needle. Let's get ourselves a fresh needle. We've got our rounded part that should be facing the front. We've got a flat space that should be facing the back, and that's really exactly how it wants to go into our little needle housing there. And then I'm going to go ahead and tighten that right back into place, making sure I get it all the way up in the top. We are just lightly hand tightening with 2-finger tension. Do not over tighten your needle or any other part of your sewing machine ever. That is a very costly repair if you strip those screws or if you ruin the needle bar assembly housing area. Don't do it. Now, I'm going to rethread this needle using that same method. We're going to bring this down. I'm going to hook onto the small arrow here. And then I'm going to run through the small little claw here and let go. And I've now threaded my needle once again. There is a small bar up here that I am going to run the thread through. I probably could have done that first. I often forget about that. There we go. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is talk about a couple of feet. What is on here right now is the A foot. It's your basic foot that you use for straight stitch and a lot of the other basic stitches on the machine. However, I'm going to snap that off. And now that I've talked about that snap, another not important feature for bag making, but a really nice one that I get asked about all the time is my quick switch ankle that is a Husqvarna Viking feature. I don't know if other brands have it. I know that not all brands do. This ankle actually stays right here on the machine, and I do not have to do anything to it in order to change my foot, unless it is the walking foot. All of the Husqvarna Viking feet use this system where literally a new foot will click right into place. I have a Teflon foot here, one of my very favorite accessories for my Viking machines. You can see that the Teflon foot has a nice wide open toe area here so we can see clearly where we're going. We've got a nice wide area here for the needle to pass through so we can move all the way to the left and right of the center position. This way we are able to move over for top stitching, which I will showcase just like in all the rest of my videos how I do that. And then of course, being made out of Teflon, the top part is actually plastic, but the bottom has a very thick layer of Teflon that's actually built into the foot. So unlike the stickers we were provided, we don't have to worry about it coming off because it's literally Teflon integrated right into the foot. I will tell you, especially working with vinyl, this little foot is an absolute miracle worker. It will work on leather. I typically don't sew leather on this machine or my Viking machine. I typically do vinyl projects, but this is a huge game changer. If you are having stitch length issues, if you are having tension issues, this little foot will fix a myriad of problems. I highly recommend a Teflon foot for any bag maker out there. This little foot here just clicks right onto the ankle down here. Taking us seconds to change our foot. And again, it's that quick for all of the feet on my Viking machine. Obviously, on this Jade machine, I absolutely love the quick switch ankle and the quick swap feet. Seconds to change feet during a project. I'm going to thread my needle, or thread my thread, through the foot. Now I'm going to do some basic tension and stitch length adjustments just to make sure the machine is working well, just to make sure that we're all set up before we start on a project. In order to do that, I'm going to grab some various vinyl scrap because I'm going to be working with a lot of vinyl today, and I know if I can get the tension right with vinyl, it should be great for cotton woven and other things like that that are going to be interfaced with thicker materials. One thing I noticed about this machine is not only does it feel very solid and feel very sturdy, but it sounds that way as well. It just sounds very solid, and it is incredibly quiet, which may or may not be a feature that is sought after depending on your living situation. Maybe you have kids you don't want to wake up when you sew at night. Maybe you're in an apartment and you don't want to risk, disturbing neighbors. Perhaps you are a full or part-time RV person and you like to go camping. You like to, if you are full-time, you're obviously living there and you don't want to disturb the other members of your family who may be also in the RV with you. So this could be a very good machine, for this reason. So I do want to highlight that. I have here just some solid color marine vinyl, kind of a peach color. That way it's in high contrast to my brown thread that I'm using, so I can go ahead and adjust my tension and just kind of look at everything here. I'm set on a 1, which is just a plain straight stitch. I don't have any of my features currently set for needle up or down, and I'm on a stitch length, just a basic 2.5. I'm going to turn that up to a 3.5 just because that's what I normally kind of stitch at, and I'll be able to see the stitch length a little bit better on that 3.5 stitch. I've got a Teflon foot installed here, and then I also am going to mess a bit with the tension, but right now it's set at a 4, and I'm going to leave it at a 4 just so I have a good baseline. I'm going to start by folding over 2 layers of my marine vinyl here, fold over a bit more, and I'm just going to sew a nice straight line. Press her foot down, get my pedal adjusted here, pedal adjusted, and let's try to sew. Needle went up as I stopped because I do not have that needle down feature set. Use my razor on the side there. So I can see right now my stitching looks pretty darn straight. And again, if I had left the metal foot on here, I'd probably notice that my stitching would not look as crisp and clean due to drag on that metal foot. Let's take a look at the back. The tension seems actually pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm actually pretty happy with that, you guys. Right out of the box, I am pretty happy with that. I sort of thought I was going to need to do a lot of tweaking, but outside of changing the foot and just getting some quality thread in here and a nice sharp needle, I haven't done anything else to this machine or really messed with it too much. So I am pleasantly surprised. Let's try that again. You notice that the machine hesitated for a moment there. That happened because I had the machine previously in the bobbin winding mode. So when I pushed the pedal down, the machine started and then stopped for a moment and just wanted to correct itself and adjust, making sure it was in the correct position. So if I sew another line here, it should not do that. Right there. And that time, it didn't hesitate. I am really happy with this tension. It appears that I don't really need to mess with anything, to be honest with you, which I am kind of baffled by. That is a really good sign of a, high quality machine. Quality control within the factory that it's being produced in is really good, because I've had some machines right out of the box that need a whole lot of loving to get them all set up and get them good to go. So I say we actually pull out another foot that is a favorite of mine. I have it sitting right over here, and you guys can kind of see the ankle switching situation in action here. This is the narrow zipper foot from Husqvarna Viking. This is another big favorite of mine. It does not come with the machine. However, absolutely worth the investment every single time. This particular foot, it was $39.95. But again, absolutely huge game changer when it comes to installing zippers. This also works amazingly for piping, as well as just for top stitching and a few other things if you need to get close to the edge of something. So let's pull this foot out, take a look at it. I'm just gonna pop this foot right off. It pulls right off and goes right here into this little set of prongs on the ankle. Set this foot aside. Let's open up our narrow foot. This narrow foot is so awesome. We see how skinny it is, and it actually has 2 bars on it, one here and one here. That is for left and right adjustment, so we don't need 2 separate feet. If I'm going to be installing my zipper, I can get that out of there. like that toward the left. So I've got my project out here. I've maybe got my materials and things pushed out of the way, or I've got my zipper up here, project in here, my needle holes on this side. Let's say I want to reverse that and I want it on the other side. We just pop this off, switch it around, put it back on, and now that hole is on the right side in here toward the throat space, which is just awesome. Again, looking for good features that I value in my machine for bag making, this is definitely one of them. So let's, we did pull this out. I want to see where I'm at on these project materials I have first. Just over here to the side out of sight. Pull this in here. I've got some materials here pre-cut for making just a basic pouch with a marine vinyl bottom with some cotton woven zipper tabs, a traditional number 3 zipper like what we use on most of our projects. I've also got some cotton woven here that is interfaced with fusible fleece, as well as a cotton woven underneath this. And then I have just some plain cotton woven that I am using for my lining. It is starched heavily, but it is not interfaced. This is how I make my pouches. These little tabs here are zipper tabs. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sew through this pouch very quickly. We'll probably speed this part up because this is not a tutorial on how to make a pouch. It is just a test to see how this machine handles top stitching through these layers, how it handles marine vinyl, how I feel about the different features on it, and if I feel like for the money it is comparable to my Opal 650. I am using this very handy 1/4 inch seam allowance that is on the bobbin case here. I can pull that off and show that to you here in front of the camera. It might be a little easier. Do you see that extended line right there below on this? Really a very handy feature. And again, these markings that are clearly engraved and really nicely done on the throat space on both sides, a really nice feature that even my Opal 650 does not have in quite the same way. So again, definitely not bad with that seam. We're going to just finger press this out toward the vinyl on the bottom here. So I'll be sewing through 2 layers of vinyl right here and a layer of this cotton woven on this side. So getting thicker on our layers here, probably one of the thickest parts of the bag. Now for top stitching, I've talked about this in my other videos, and this was one of my sought after features on this machine versus some of the other lower priced Husqvarna Viking machines. On this particular machine, we can move our needle all the way left and all the way right. That to me is really important because I use that tip for top stitching. I want to get a really close top stitch right here. I'm going to go ahead and move my needle all the way out. That is the max amount that it will go, and I'm going to line up the foot here on the edge of my project. Hopefully we're, nice and zoomed in and you can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and top stitch down the side here. This is a trick that I use very consistently on nearly every single bag that I make, on every single machine that I sew on. And so it was important for me to make sure that that feature was available on a machine that I'm recommending for bag making. So we've gone ahead and moved our needle all the way over here to the side, all the way over to the left. So I've got my foot lined up here, and that means I'm going to get a really close top stitch. I'm going to top stitch all the way down. Let me also show you a fixed stitch very quickly since we're here. You can back stitch, at each beginning and end, and that's totally fine. You can often use the fixed stitch feature, which is just by pressing this button, and it's going to go ahead and stitch about 5 stitches, creating a small knot where you start and stop. This is especially helpful for quilting where we don't want to have a back stitch necessarily, where it's a little bit more showy, but I often use the fixed stitch on different seams and things too. It's very helpful. I'm going to push fix on the machine. The little orange light has come on the machine that you guys can't see. And I'm gonna push these start and stop right here, just out of view of the camera. I'm not touching. And the machine is actually going to keep sewing. By the way, this is the machine push the stop button. That was the machine continuing to sew. I will also show you that feature since we just did it. My foot is not on the pedal, and I'm just simply going to guide the project through, but I'm going to push this button right here. You'll hear me push it, and the machine will just go. Simply guiding it along to keep my seam allowance correct. I'm coming here toward the end. Getting ready. I'm going to push stop. And then I'm actually going to back stitch here just a little bit by pushing the start button, then the stop button, back out of reverse, and start and stop again. Now, because I was paying more attention to the start and stop feature, I didn't pay super close attention to my seam allowance there. Again, that's on me. I didn't do horrible with it, but I'm a little narrow here at this end. That's okay. This pouch is a very forgiving pattern. I'm not too worried about it. This is purely experimental at this point, just to see how this machine does with everything. So you just saw me put this machine through its paces for bag making, just whipping up this very quick, simple little pouch. It's got vinyl, it's got interfaced cottons. We did a zipper installation, we did some boxed corners. We really got through some bulky areas to make sure that our tension would stay well, and also did some top stitching on very sticky vinyl. I definitely think after doing all these experiments, I can put my personal stamp of approval on this machine. I would use it to make a bag. It's got many features that I absolutely love for bag making, in addition to lots of features that I didn't even touch on today. If you are someone who is looking for a machine to do a bit of bag making, I would highly recommend that you look at the Husqvarna Jade 20. Thank you so much for watching this video today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.